Hello, this is Patrick W. Crawford, Moo-Ack Productions, and this is a short demo video of an add-on I developed called the Pose Tools, and this is free to download on GitHub. So if you go to this link and then press download zip and then unzip the folder, you can install it in Blender in the usual fashion. So install from File, go to wherever it is you may have installed it, and then you install the .py file, and then enable it, and then save user preferences if you want to keep it. Alright, so mainly, you have to use it on a rig, so this works on an armature, so I'm just going to add one into the scene. This is my MC Prep add-on, kind of irrelevant. And then we will zoom in onto our character once we're in pose mode. Alright, so now under the tools, you notice you have the built-in tools over here, and then you have the pose library tools over here, so that's what this add-on is. So the main feature is it builds upon the built-in pose library, which perhaps not many people know about or use. So this built-in functionality, which is just moved into this menu, you can create a new pose and you can create a stance. So I'm going to create a new pose that's stored, call this stance or something. And then I can create another one. Maybe I want to clear out the position so it's more neutral. So I'll create a neutral pose, add new, I'll call it neutral. And then maybe I'll add one more where I have him rotated in some other funky fashion, move his arms up or something, I don't know. And then I'll add another one, and it's going to be called rotated. So the pose tools allow you to easily mix between different poses. So if I click here and I do apply mixed pose, it will make that the active pose. So you note in the redo last menu, you have this slider show up. It's the mix influence. Again, this is the redo last menu, separate from this one up here. So I go here and I move this slider back and forth. I actually am changing the pose in real time, and I can basically set the mix between what was the previously selected or current pose, whether or not it was in the library, and then with the one that I've selected. So as a proof of that example, I can move a completely different pose that was not in the pose library, and I can do a mix between that. So if I do apply mixed here, it's going to mix between that previously active pose. So one thing you will note is that it only applies on the bones you have selected. So in this case, if I were to do the rotated bone, so remember I had changed the pose a little bit here. So if I do that one, it's only going to affect the rotation of that selected bone. But if I select everything and then do the apply mixed pose, it's going to do the other bones as well. So you see it's kind of rotating the arm a little bit. So that's the useful functionality, again, that builds on the built-in functionality. We also have the ability to do copy and mixed pasting of the poses. So if I just enable keyframing and then I add a keyframe for all of the bones at this frame, and then let's just apply the neutral pose here. So it'll automatically create the keyframes for everything in there. You notice that I'm able to copy poses. So perhaps maybe we'll have another crazy frame where he's like flying up in the air or something. So I can copy onto the buffer on any frame, again, based on the selection. So copy pose. Then to another point in time, I can do mixed paste. So if I do mixed paste, I can, again, with the same idea, do a mix between the pose at that time and what I'm wishing for. So maybe he's just kind of off in the air, but not completely, so like 15%. So I can scroll around and see, oh, that's what that looks like. But even after I've scrolled a little bit, it's nice. I'm able to still change and sort of, maybe I want it to be a little bit more higher, 50%. It'll snap back to that frame so you can kind of tweak it. You do notice I have another slider called Mix Influence. So if we go over here, for example, or over here, if I were to set this to 50%, it basically just pre-applies the mix influence to that amount. So you see it's 50% here. If I click it multiple times, well, that was the pose that was copied. So if I move it here, rather, apply mixed pose, or mix paste, rather, it works for both these functions. So if I do that one, it will mix paste to there. If I do that, this will apply the neutral pose, but only 50% of it. If I click it multiple times, you see it gets closer. So this just presets what the mix influence there is, which can be useful if your rig has lots of bones and this slider is very slow to work with. But again, after you use the mix, whatever you set this here, it just sets this initial starting point, so you can still modify it further. So that's just a quick note. So don't confuse the two. This one will not interactively change the mix influence in your viewport. That just presets it. So anyways, this is the add-on. Again, it's the pose tools, the pose library tools additions. I hope you enjoy the add-on. Let me know if you have any issues with it, or if you're looking for more functionality. I may be developing it more in the future. And definitely check out my playlist of other add-ons and small development projects I've worked on. I have lots of little niche things like this out there that I think are useful for people to use. So thank you for watching, and until next time, Moo-Ack.